is where we discuss the possibilities.
Hey guys, I'm Joe Klemczewski, founder of the Diet Doc, here with my partner, Dr. Kori Propst, a health psychologist and our vice president. Today we're going to be in our science or fiction segment. And Kori, I want to talk about something that, of course, is in the news and all the rage. I've done a lot of interviews on this lately. People love talking about it. And it's intermittent fasting and time-restricted feeding. So some of you might see that as the topic and think, well, gosh, I've already been inundated with this information. I've heard Joe talk about it on the P4P Muscle channel. I was just interviewed by ANDREA DUPUY, who's a coach with us on the East Coast. And all of that content is there. But what I want to do differently today is talk very specifically about the health and hormonal response to this, simply because there is some pretty wild misinformation out there. And I think pretty critical misrepresentation of some studies. So when you, no way, like, how can that happen? So Kori, intermittent fasting, what is your experience? Ever since this has become a thing, or even prior to that, have you ever manipulated your meal plan specifically just to eat less or create some kind of fasting mechanism?
Specifically to eat less, yes. Specifically to have more time between meals, yes. Because I've seen that I tend to lose more effectively if I have a greater space of time in between my meals. Have I done what would traditionally, or maybe research-wise, be in line with intermittent fasting? I don't think so. Like 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day? No. And I'm not willing to even try it, just because of what my schedule looks like and how much I train, and just how crucial it is, I feel, for me to get in food more often than once or twice a day.
So here's what's really interesting. As I've been interviewed about this topic for at least the last year, I have always defined it in the way that you just did, which is, eating 1 or 2 meals a day. The time-restricted feeding, of course, most famously right now is the 8 and 16-hour window. But when you look at research, that kind of eating, I can't find anything. I cannot find anything where people have done that study work. So when you go to PubMed, Google Scholar, anywhere else, and you're looking for this, intermittent fasting is defined quite differently. First of all, most study models are with mice, which is fine on one level. We share about 95% of our DNA with mice. 65 million years ago, when the last mass extinction happened, the only thing that survived in the mammalian world were rodents. So that's why we can use rats and mice for study, because we evolved from them. But there are some differences, of course. I mean, their metabolic rates and all that kind of thing. And the studies are typically very short. Most of them are 2 to maybe 21 days. Occasionally, you'll get a human trial that they try and get people to comply for 6 months. But when you look at intermittent fasting, it's usually something like this. 1 or 2 days a week, we've restricted people by 25% of their calories. The rest of the time, they can eat whatever they want. So that's what we're calling intermittent fasting. Or maybe they fast a total fast, 0 calories, 1 or 2 days a week. It's not what is portrayed in pop culture right now. So, yeah, and what got me excited, and I know Andrea in her interview, she wanted to know, is the conflicting information that, hey, intermittent fasting, one of the benefits is that it increases testosterone. You can build muscle, have more vitality, and feel better. And the first time I heard somebody say that on YouTube in a video, I said, that's just total BS. There's no way. So I specifically searched for that. And although I found the one study that this so-called doctor researcher was purporting, but everything else, and I'll explain where that flaw is, everything else said exactly what I'm saying, in that testosterone is absolutely correlational to calorie intake. But guess what? when you eat fewer calories or fewer meals, it is a direct correlation to decreasing levels of testosterone, which is quite normal because that's why a decrease in calories or meals increases longevity. That's part of it. When you have less testosterone, you have less risk of arteriosclerosis and all that kind of thing. But here's what's interesting, Kori. In that particular study where they made the claim that you could have increasing testosterone, it was with people who do intermittent fasting by just restricting calories 1 or 2 days a week, and then the rest of the week you eat whatever you want.
Okay.
So what you're doing, like any other chemical adaptation, is you're basically rinsing receptor sites. It's like, okay, we're used to this much food, then we go into a fasting state for a day or so. So insulin sensitivity rises, your body's basically priming itself for food, and then you get a spike in everything when you eat again. So you can measure acute increases in anything if that's your design setup. So the first thing I want to say, and just saying in our science or fiction segment, this is total fiction, and I would like to be even harsher, is that intermittent fasting, reducing calories at all, reducing meals, restricting meals per day will reduce testosterone, which that might be your goal if it's to reduce risk of cardiovascular disease. We know that you reduce C-reactive protein and systemic inflammation, which is the underlying cause of almost all disease. So you've got this spectrum of, do I want to do what's best for my health and my longevity? Or do I want to do what's best for my performance and gaining muscle? Because a lot of people want the best of both worlds, right? And they're totally antithetical.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So is there, and where is there is a middle ground?
Well, it's of course just to eat a normal, healthy diet. That's how almost dumb and boring some of these claims are. If you want your best, highest levels of testosterone and ability to recover and perform, the best things you can do are, number one, eat less processed carbohydrates and sugar. Not eliminating carbs, but just reducing the processed stuff, reducing saturated fat, get as much sleep as your body needs, exercise. You have to train with weights, obviously. That's the number one thing to increase testosterone and estrogen and growth hormone is to train aggressively without overtraining. Another interesting top fiver is just to have the micronutrients you even need. So, having a multi-vitamin and mineral and all that, but to try and manipulate it with intermittent fasting and say that's going to increase your testosterone, absolutely the opposite.
Well, so, what's interesting here to me is that most of the people who come to us, they're not interested in the testosterone aspect of it. And they don't even come to me with health goals around intermittent fasting. It's being used primarily to lose body fat.
And that's why this was a weird selling point, because I totally agree with that. If you wanted to lose body fat, you already said, yes, I have cut a meal out of a day, probably at the end of the day or something, or I've spread my meals apart. So I have increased fasting periods in my day. Correct. That's nothing new. Right. I think about it like this, there's this, everybody's talking about this magical 8 and 16 hour window. I typically eat dinner around 6 or 6:30, and I don't eat breakfast till around 7:30 or 8. So I'm already not eating for 13 or so hours. So skipping one meal, skipping my breakfast, all of a sudden I'm intermittent fasting. Like, how fantastic is that? Like, that's not life-changing, but for somebody who needs to restrict calories somewhat, they're trying to lose weight, cutting out one meal a day and creating those goalposts, like I can't eat until this time and I must stop eating at this time. That's where the magic is occurring.
Yeah, and for someone, let's use that example where they may skip their typical breakfast when they eat when they get up and just say, I'm not going to eat until 11 o'clock or noon. that could work pretty well if they're just not necessarily that hungry in the morning, or they don't train in the morning and they train later at night and they're getting a bigger bolus of food in the afternoon. But like that wouldn't work for me.
Right. Right.
It wouldn't work for someone who's training twice a day either and has more goals like that. But yeah, for sure. And the one thing too is what I've noticed is I can cut a meal out and not even change the amount of calories I'm consuming. But if I have 4 meals instead of 5 or 3 meals instead of 4, same amount of calories, I'm going to lose differently. I'm going to lose more effectively. I'm going to lose faster just because of that increased amount of time between the meals where my body can dip into other stores of energy.
Right. Yeah, to your point about clients who typically come to us and they're looking for exactly what you just said. I want weight loss. I want to feel better. I want to have the boundaries and the structure that will assist me. That's what was so fascinating about how this one person made the claim that, and it increases your testosterone, because any person in the know with any nutrition knowledge would know that that's a decrease. And that's normal for any dieting. When you're lower in body fat, you're in a calorie deficit, you should see those hormone levels come down. So it's almost like any other kind of marketing pitch. It's like, hey, by the way, if you eat my brand of chicken breast, you're going to have better sex. Hey, if you buy my car that gets 32 miles a gallon, oh, by the way, you're going to have better sex. Like you want to attach something that people want. Right. And since we're afraid of losing lean body mass in the nutrition world, if you can say, oh, well, this is the one way, this is the single best way where that won't happen, that's what everybody's talking about.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to bring this specific point, and I think Andrea was trying to steer our conversation in that direction as well. So I had to get in and see the actual research people were discussing and find all the normal research that says, no, it's quite the opposite.
Well, so real quick question before we wrap up. Andrea works with both competitive performance-based clients, and she works with general population individuals who just want to be lean and healthy and feel their best. When you did this video with her, was this a live where you were getting questions from her clients, or what, did she come to this video with questions from her clients? And
it was a recorded interview, and she had a list of questions, and they were definitely tied to, I think, what she was hearing in some of these YouTube videos, similar to what I've heard. But you're right. Interestingly, she's a great clinician, a great coach. So when she hears that something is being touted in the public and people have questions that they're coming to her with, she's going to try it. Like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Right. And she started out liking it, as most people would, because when you create more structure around your food, you are going to feel more mentally clear. That's what a calorie deficit and, better whole food selections, better consistency. Everybody's going to feel that way, no matter what kind of diet you embark upon. But she said very quickly, she started feeling horrible. It didn't take long before this hard training, aggressive athlete who also happens to be an ectomorph, when she's trying to get all of the food she needs in an 8-hour window, she said, I felt like, I was losing, hormone capacity and energy and strength. And she said, I could see myself losing lean body mass. And so she found out the hard way that, it's not increasing those growth stimulating and anabolic hormones, but quite the opposite. Yeah,
she's great in that, because I know that she's tried keto too, and she jumps in 100% to see what it's like and what it, the effects that it will have, so she can maybe better have conversations with her clients about what it might be like for them too. But it's pretty cool. Joe, if you could direct our listeners and our viewers to like certain research or like scientists who have actually delved into this, where would you send them?
So again, the actual research on intermittent fasting and time restricted eating is pretty sparse. I don't even know if it really exists yet, except for You know, when you look at that, like I said, even the term intermittent fasting, obviously somebody drew that out of medical literature, but it doesn't mean the same thing, because researchers talking about intermittent fasting isn't as a diet model or method. It's just how to measure what happens when you take calories down for a short amount of time. So, you know, I was looking at the International, you know, Journal of Obesity, all kinds of things, even reproductive biology, you know, study journals. I mean, all these places that would be talking about testosterone and hormones. And every time the word intermittent fasting came up, it was those small reductions for a day or two, or literal fasting for a day or two. It was not an entire quantum, you know, diet lifestyle.
Like a macro cycle of method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to send people other than, you know, first of all, go to actual research, you know, go to PubMed, go to these individual science journals and do these searches in their databases. Other than that, I think you're just going to get a lot of people just selling you something.
Yeah, it really is buyer beware. Don't believe everything you hear and that people are throwing out on the internet about what to do and how to do it and what it is. So,
but I would say for at least a longer discussion, P4P Muscle, you know, a podcast channel, interviewed me a couple months ago when we had a great long, you know, discussion about this. Andrea and I talked about some new facets that I had not discussed before. So those two are going to be on our website. You can certainly look up Andrea Kawano DUPUY as a diet doc, clinician, coach. She has her own social media, and of course, P4P Muscle.
Great. And we can put those links, guys, in the show notes for this episode as well, so you can access them easily. Awesome, Joe. Well, thank you.
Love it. Thank you.
Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.